Hello everybody, I'm Thrash Maniac HD, and yes, this is your 2013-14 college football bowl game predictions. And as I'm recording this video, 2 bowl games are already going on, but they're not over yet, so I'm still making predictions for those. The first game that has been going on since about 2 o'clock is the New Mexico Bowl, which is Washington State versus Colorado State. Score currently 35-23 Washington State with about 13 minutes in the third quarter left. I'm going with Washington State to win this game because they got a hell of a quarterback, and that's their secret weapon. The second game, which is going on right now, is the Las Vegas Bowl, and the first quarter just ended, and it's USC versus Fresno State. And Fresno State at number 21, USC at number 25. Currently, the score after the first quarter is 14-6 USC. I'm still going with USC to win because, they're in the Pac-12, and Fresno State, their record, it's a typical season for them because they're in the Mountain West, and the only competition they have in that conference is Boise State. Also, USC beat Stanford in a game earlier in the year, so I'm going USC to win this game over Fresno. Then the next game we've got, which is the New Orleans Bowl, which is Tulane versus Louisiana Lafayette. I'm going with Tulane to win this game. And then the final game of today at 9 o'clock Eastern Time is the Heart of Idaho Potato Bowl, I believe is what it's called. The Idaho Potato Bowl. Buffalo versus San Diego State. I'm going with Buffalo because they got better stats than San Diego. So there you go. The next bowl game, which is Monday afternoon, which is the only game on that day, which is the St. Petersburg Bowl, which is East Carolina versus Ohio University. I'm going with East Carolina to win this game. And then the next game that we have after that is the Hawaii Bowl, which is Boise State versus Oregon State on Christmas Eve. Oh man, this is going to be a tough one because they're both interesting teams. However, I think I'm going with Oregon State because they're in the Pac-12. Boise State's no slouch because Boise State, especially in the last almost decade, they've been one of the most underrated, underappreciated teams in college football. But this year's not really been their year, so I'm going with Oregon State to win that game. Then on Thursday, December 26th, the day after Christmas, we got 2 games. First, the Little Caesars Bowl, Bowling Green versus Pittsburgh. I'm going with Bowling Green to win this game. And then the other bowl game that day is the Poinsettia Bowl, Utah State versus number 23, Northern Illinois. Now, Northern Illinois, despite losing a game to, I believe Bowling Green, I believe they lost to Bowling Green in the MAC Conference Championship game, which they gone into that game undefeated and were in the top 15. If they would have won, they would have been in a BCS game, but because they lost, they're down to the Poinsettia Bowl. But for this, I'm still going Northern Illinois. I don't see Utah State doing much. Then on Friday, December 27th, we got 3 bowl games. First, the Military Bowl, Marshall versus Maryland. I'm going to go with Marshall to win this game because they've done pretty good in the Conference USA conference. They had a good season. Maryland, they were good in the beginning, but then they really just went down the hill. The next bowl game is the Texas Bowl, which is 2 teams that are not even from Texas, but oh well. Syracuse versus Minnesota. I'm going Minnesota to win this game because they actually had a decent season. Syracuse haven't really been relevant in a long-ass time. The next game, the Fight Hunger Bowl, Brigham Young or BYU versus Washington. This game's going to be very, very interesting because they're both equally matched teams. If I had to pick, I have to pick Washington because they pulled off one or two upsets during the regular season. So I'm going Washington. Then on Saturday, December 28th, we got 4 games like we have today, which is the first game at noon, which is the Pinstripe Bowl, Rutgers versus Notre Dame. I'm going Notre Dame to win that game. Then the next game after that is the Belk Bowl, Cincinnati versus North Carolina. Cincinnati's going to win that. Then we've got a good game right here, the Athletic Bowl, Miami, Florida versus Louisville. I'm going to go with Louisville to win this game. However, Miami's definitely no slouch, but I think Louisville can beat them. After all, they are a one-loss team. Then the next and final bowl game for next Saturday, which is at 10 o'clock, the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl, Michigan versus Kansas State. Oh boy. I normally don't really ever pick Michigan for anything because they're the one team I hate the most in college football because they are the big rivals of my Ohio State Buckeyes. OHIO. So I don't ever want to pick Michigan for really anything. And I mean, yeah, they about beat Ohio State, but they still lost. Kansas State. These two teams are pretty much evenly matched, but I got to go with Kansas State because they are in the Big 12 and they've played a bunch of tough teams. So I have to go with Kansas State on that. Next up, which is 4 games on Monday, December 30th. The first game we've got is the Armed Forces Bowl, Middle Tennessee versus Navy. Based on record and stats, I'm going with Middle Tennessee to win this game. Then we got the Music City Bowl, Ole Miss, or Mississippi, versus Georgia Tech. Whew. This is another tough one because Georgia Tech came close to winning their division in the ACC conference, but Ole Miss are in that. I hate to say it. I mean, I don't care to say it because I think they are overrated, but the overrated SEC conference. Because the reason I say it's overrated is because people want to praise that conference to death. When you still have in that conference some weak teams like Kentucky and Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Arkansas, they had not the best of luck. So, I mean, the only good teams you have in that conference are LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Auburn and Missouri. That's about it. Everybody else, not so good. Florida fucking sucked this year. Even though they were hurt with injuries, they still sucked. But for this game, I am still going to go with Ole Miss to pick up the win over Georgia Tech. Then the next game we've got is the Alamo Bowl. Now, this game is going to be very interesting here. The Texas Bowl, which is Oregon, or no, not the Texas Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, excuse me. Oregon versus Texas. Texas picked it up in the later part of the season, but Oregon was always top 15 all year. At one point, they were undefeated until losing to Stanford. But I think for this game, I think Oregon's going to kill Texas. I mean, that's just the bottom line. That's just the bottom line because Thrash Maniac HD said so. And then the final game of Monday, December 30th, is the Holiday Bowl, which is number 14, Arizona State versus Texas Tech. Texas Tech started out pretty good, but then they fell by the wayside. So, and also Arizona State played in the Pac-12 championship, so I'm going with Arizona State. And then on Tuesday, on New Year's Eve, we've got 4 games. We've got the Advocare V100 Bowl, Arizona versus Boston College. I think I'm going Arizona to win this game. Boston College did come 2 touchdowns behind beating Florida State, but Arizona, they're in the Pac-12, so that's going to be the advantage. Then we've got the Sun Bowl, Virginia Tech versus number 17 UCLA. UCLA, come on. Then we've got the Liberty Bowl, which is Rice versus Mississippi State. For this game, I'm going with Mississippi State. I know a lot of guys are going to base Rice their pick based on record, but Mississippi State, even though they did okay this year in the SEC, they are SEC conference. So, yeah. And then the final game of New Year's Eve is a very good one here, the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Duke, number 24 Duke versus number 21 Texas A&M. Duke came off of a very tough game against Florida State in the ACC Championship, and this is their first bowl game in like 15 years, I believe it is. But Texas A&M, even though they lost 4 games, they got Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel. Even though I don't like his attitude, he is a hell of a quarterback. So for that, I'm going with Texas A&M. Now we get to the biggest day of college football bowl season. New Year's Day, January 1st, 2014. 6 games are going on that day. First, there's 2 of them going on at noon and 2 of them going on at 1, so you basically have 4 games going on around the same time. First is the Gator Bowl, Nebraska versus number 22 Georgia. These 2 teams are very evenly matched. I mean, Georgia, they are a good team in the SEC, but Nebraska picked it up near the end of the season. And then I've read their stats. They've got a little bit better stats than Georgia. So for that, I'm going to go with Nebraska to win this game. However, it's like in confidence points, that's a little lower down the list. The next game we've got is the Heart of Dallas Bowl, UNLV or Las Vegas versus North Texas. I'm going with North Texas to win this game because they had a pretty decent season. Now we get to a very interesting one, the Capital One Bowl, number 19 Wisconsin versus number 9 South Carolina. South Carolina and Wisconsin, this is going to be a tough game. I mean, they both have about equal defenses, but Wisconsin's advantage they have is their running game, and I think their running game will prevail, so I'm going with Wisconsin. Outback Bowl, we've got Iowa versus number 16 LSU. I'm going LSU to win that game. Now we get to 2 of the 5 BCS games. First, probably other than the national championship game, probably the biggest one, the Rose Bowl, number 5 Stanford versus number 4 Michigan State. Michigan State just came off of that big win by beating my Buckeyes, who are undefeated, and that's still up, man. But hey, I'll get to their game here in a little bit. But Stanford and Michigan State, very, very, very tough to pick. Stanford's got a hell of an offense, but Michigan State's got a hell of a defense. But I think also because they got a good running game, but their defense is going to stomp Stanford, I'm going with Michigan State. And hell, if they didn't lose to Notre Dame, Michigan State, if everything went this way but Michigan State won against Notre Dame, Michigan State would play the national championship this year. Anyways, and then the final game of January 1st, which is the second BCS game, the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl, one of my personal favorite bowl games to watch, no matter who's in it. Number 15 Central Florida versus number 6 Baylor. Both teams are one-loss teams, both very good teams, but I still think Baylor's going to win this game. And then we got one game on January 2nd, which is the third BCS game. Number 11 Oklahoma versus number 3 Alabama in the All-State Sugar Bowl. I think this will be an interesting game, but I'm still going with Alabama to pick up the win here. And then on Friday, January 3rd, we got 2 very good games. One BCS, one not. The non-BCS game, the AT&T Cotton Bowl, which is always one of my favorites to watch, the Cotton Bowl, because it's an important one. It's probably the biggest bowl game that's not a BCS game, I would say. Number 13, Oklahoma State versus number 8, Missouri. This game's going to be this is going to be a high-scoring game. However, I see Missouri picking up the victory here. And then the final game of that day, which is the fourth BCS game, the Discover Orange Bowl, number 12, Clemson versus number 7, my Ohio State Buckeyes. With Buckeyes with Carlos Hyde, they're they're unstoppable on the run game. They're passing. Braxton Miller can throw, but their stats don't really show it. And their passing defense can use some work. But when it comes to the keeping the players on the ground on the running defense, they can sure as hell beat them. So I'm going with Ohio State to win this game, not just because I'm being biased, but Clemson started out the season as maybe being the best team to challenge Alabama, but then they got creamed by Florida State and they just fell down to pieces, and then they lost to South Carolina as well. Ohio State only lost to Michigan State, and I give Michigan State credit. They're the only Michigan team I like, but that's about it. But I think Ohio State, based on having Carlos Hyde and having a hell of a rushing defense, I think Ohio State's going to win. Saturday, January 4th, we have the Compass Bowl, Vanderbilt versus Houston. Both teams are very evenly matched, record-wise and stat-wise, but because Vanderbilt's SEC, I got to go with Vanderbilt. And then the final regular bowl season, or the final regular bowl game, the GoDaddy Bowl on January 5th, Arkansas State versus Ball State. I think I'm going Ball State to win this game. I believe I picked them. I can't remember. I need to look up the thing here. No, I picked Arkansas State. Oh, yeah, that's right, I did. I picked Arkansas State because they had a better record and a better stat list. So there you go. And now to the big one. The biggest one of them all. The Vizio BCS National Championship game. Number 1, undefeated Florida State versus number 2, SEC champions Auburn. This is going to be very good. This is going to be an amazing game. But based on stats, the only advantage Auburn really has is their running. Their running game. That's about it. Passing, Jameis Winston won the Heisman, even though he got that allegation of being a rapist, even though he wasn't getting charged. He is a hell of a quarterback. He can throw. And their defense is simply top-notch. So I think Florida State's going to win this game, probably by about 2 touchdowns. And yeah, that does it for this predictions video. I want to hear from you guys. What are your predictions? But until next video, peace.